Through you, Mr. Chair, it is 4 o'clock and our live streaming and recording are working, so you may go ahead and start your meeting.
Okay, I'll start then with, ladies and gentlemen, I'll make the introduction here that this is an electronic hearing of the Committee of Adjustments for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present and viewing at home will be given an opportunity to comment on the application being heard. And please address your comments and questions through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy requirements of the Planning Act and the council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. In addition, a public notice sign has been posted on the lines and information has been provided to the town's Committee of Adjustments webpage. Now, agents commenting on an application may request that certain conditions be imposed should the application be approved. And if you voice objections to these conditions, this will not adversely affect the committee's decision. So don't worry about that. The process of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, and following which the applicant will be given an opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will be given an opportunity to participate in the meeting. If you pre-registered to speak during the public portion of the application, you will be brought into the Zoom meeting and will be unmuted. I would ask that you would please state your name and mailing address for the record. And please advise once you have finished speaking, you will be removed from the Zoom meeting room. If you are live streaming at home and wish to submit a comment during application, you may do so by emailing the clerks at pelham.ca. We will be checking that. At the conclusion of the public portion of the meeting, these comments will be read into the record. If you submit comments after the public portion has been closed, your comments will not be considered. At the conclusion of discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise any applicable conditions. And then specific wording of these conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. Copies of the decision will be mailed to the applicant or agent or to any other person who files a written request. If you wish to be provided a copy of the decision, please contact Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible. The Secretary Treasurer's contact information is available upon coming PowerPoint presentation and available at the town's website. Any person, corporation, or public body has a right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the local appeal body within 20 days of the decision for minor variances and 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent application. Now, we're having these meetings by Zoom webinar, and it's also being live streamed on the town's YouTube channel. You may wish to put your... Pardon?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Sorry for interrupting. I do understand that member Stan is having some technical difficulties, so if you just would allow me to give her a phone call to try to fix the issue.
Okay.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Now you're back. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's great. Through you, Mr. Chair, you may proceed with your opening remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I left off with the town's YouTube channel you can watch there. And you may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner of from the speaker view. Now, this is important. We ask that you're mindful of background noise for the duration of the meeting. Any kind of noise, we'll hear it. Committee members are asked to mute the microphones until they are asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote by raising your hand. Please note that attendees who have registered will remain in the waiting room via telephone or electronically until the application of interest is brought to the committee. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked by the chair to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you may do so by clicking on participants in the bottom center of the screen, and then by clicking raise hand. On mobile device, you can tap raise hand in the bottom left corner. You will be then called upon to speak, and your microphone will be unmuted by staff. If you are participating by phone, you will be unmuted by staff when the agenda item that you have registered is being discussed. And applicants and agents and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the web once the decision on the application is made. Now, we have attending today, I'm the chair, John Clausen. Sandra Marsh is one of the committee members, and Brenda Stan is one of the committee members. And then we have Mr. Derek Young. He's here from the engineering. He's the engineering manager. Ellie Wilford, she's the, I guess, the clerk, yeah. And then Shannon LaRock is from the planning department. Okay, and right now, do any of the members have any pecuniary interest in either one of these applications we have to? I don't.
Through the chair, I have none.
And
okay.
I have
okay, so then we'll move on. Sarah, has there been any requests for withdrawals or adjournments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there has not.
So then, Sarah, we can then start off with the first application, A19-2021P 1000 Effingham Street. So I ask you please to proceed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Committee of Adjustment hearing, Tuesday, July 6th at 4 p.m. All Town of Pelham in-person Committee of Adjustment hearings have been canceled. Instead, the town is holding all Committee of Adjustment hearings electronically via Zoom. Please note, no decisions have been made prior to this public hearing. This presentation is based upon the Town of Pelham's Planning Department report and analysis. All comments received from commenting agencies and from the public have been forwarded in full to the Committee of Adjustment members for their consideration. Participants are reminded, please ensure your background is free from offensive or vulgar material. If inappropriate material is visible, you will be removed from the meeting. Vulgar or offensive language will not be tolerated. If inappropriate language is used, you'll be removed from the meeting. Participants' microphones and video cameras will remain off until they are called to speak. Once your comments have been heard by the committee, your microphone will be muted. Once voting on the item has taken place, participants will be removed from the meeting completely. You may resume viewing the meeting via live stream. Decorum. The Committee of Adjustment is a formal public hearing requiring decorum. This means that all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Please note that all comments have to be received during the public portion of the meeting, otherwise they will not be considered. Disrespectful comments will not be tolerated. Cheering, booing, or hissing from the gallery will also not be tolerated. Please note that if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons asked to leave. Public portion of the meeting. To allow for an efficient meeting, each member of the public will be given the opportunity to speak to the committee during the public portion of the meeting. Please note, after all members of the public have been given the opportunity to speak, the applicant or agent will have the opportunity to address the public comments and concerns at one time. Our first application this evening is A19, 1000 Effingham Street. The subject land is located on the west side of Effingham Street, lying south of Welland Road, known locally as 1000 Effingham Street. The minor variance application requests relief from Section 7.7A, maximum accessory lot coverage, seeking 1.5%, whereas 1% is required. 7.7D, maximum building height, seeking 5 meters, whereas 3.7 meters is required. To date, the following comments have been received. Niagara Region Planning and Development. No objections, provided no plumbing or living space be included within the proposed accessory building. The Building Department, a building permit will be required. Public Works, no comments or conditions. We did receive one public comment, and it is summarized as follows. No objection to the accessory building unless the purpose of the building is to be used for a large-scale commercial dog breeding facility. Is the variance minor in nature? Staff is of the opinion that although the lot coverage allowed will be exceeded, the impact on the subject property and adjacent property is minimal. Adequate land area will remain available to handle stormwater runoff, maintain privacy, the existing septic system, and preserve a rear yard amenity area. With regard to accessory building height, staff is of the opinion that although the building height allowed will be exceeded, the impact on the subject property and adjacent property is minimal given the rural context. No negative impacts are anticipated by the adjacent neighbors, as adequate distance separates the nearest residential neighbor from the building. The building is also surrounded by existing mature trees, which help minimize the visual impacts caused by additional height. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The increase of the accessory building lot coverage is desirable as the accessory building reuses a former footprint on the property, and the building design employs a typical rural built form which demonstrates and maintains the rural character of the property. The increase of the building height is desirable as it allows for enhanced storage and use of the facility. No adverse impacts are anticipated on the surrounding land. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The proposed use of the building accessory to a single detached house is permitted in the specialty agriculture designation of the official plan, and the use which are compatible with agriculture are permitted. Given the location and the dimensions of the building, the requested increase in height and lot coverage will not compromise the objectives of the official plan, particularly with respect to land use compatibility, stormwater runoff, and private sewage system service capabilities. The subject application should have no impact on the agricultural viability of the subject land or the agricultural use of the surrounding area, and is therefore able to maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The requested variance of the building's height and lot coverage are appropriate given the rural context. Reasonable amount of open space remain available on the site for amenity area, stormwater runoff, and sewage system purposes. Thus, the increased height and lot coverage will not adversely impact the rural character of the area or the surrounding countryside. Planning staff are of the opinion that the constructed accessory building should not negatively impact the adjacent key natural heritage features, surrounding neighborhood with regard to land use incompatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the provincial, regional, and local plans. Planning staff recommend that the application number A19, 2021P be approved subject to the following conditions. That the applicant apply for and receive a building permit for the constructed accessory building, that the applicant ensure no plumbing or living space be provided within the building at the time of the building permit, ensure that the accessory building meets the minimum setback distance derived from the MDS formula if the building is to be used for housing livestock. If you wish to receive a copy of the decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible. Holly Wilford, Secretary Treasurer, the Committee of Adjustment, 20 Pelham Town Square, P.O. Box 400, Font Hill, Ontario, LOS 1EO, hwilford@pelham.ca. And this contact information is also available on the Town of Pelham's website. Through you, Mr. Chair, we will just bring in the agent for this application, which is Mr. Ethan Lamont from Upper Canada Consultants.
So, okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. I have a short presentation I'd like to share. I'm just going to share my screen.
Good. Okay, please proceed then. Thank you.
So my name is Ethan Lamont. I'm a junior planner here at Upper Canada Consultants. I'm joined by William Hycoop, who's also a planner here. I'm just going to be showing a few short slides just to give some background and context for this minor variance application. Sorry. So the subject lands are known municipally as 1000 Effingham Street. The town of Pelham, they're located near the intersection of Effingham Street and Welland Road. The subject property is approximately 2.8 hectares in area, or about 6.9 acres. It's currently zoned as agricultural under the town of Pelham zoning bylaw. It's used for residential purposes and contains a dwelling and some accessory structures. And the surrounding area is generally characterized by rural residential uses. So the requested variances apply to an accessory structure that's already been constructed on the property. The subject building is located on the footprint of a structure that previously existed on the property, and it reuses a portion of that foundation as well as the driveway access. So two variances are requested. The first is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 1.5% for accessory structures, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 1%. I will note that that 1% lot coverage provision applies to just the accessory structures on the property. The zoning bylaw allows a maximum lot coverage for all buildings of 10%. And the total lot coverage on the property is 2.06%, which is considerably lower than that maximum 10% permitted. And the second variance is to permit a maximum building height of 5 meters or 16.4 feet, whereas the zoning bylaw limits height of accessory structures to 3.7 meters or 12.14 feet. So here's some images of the subject structure. As noted, the structure is located on an existing or a former building footprint. It's appropriately scaled to the lands and features high quality building materials, including board and batten and steel roofing. And it has design elements that emulate a typical rural built form, such as the cupolas in the roof line and the crow's peak at the gable ends. So the four tests of a minor variance under the Planning Act. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The structure doesn't negatively impact the agricultural operations on the subject lands or surrounding lands. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The structure reflects the rural character of the area, and suitable amenity space, drainage area, private sewage area is maintained on the property. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The structure uses a former building footprint and foundation from a previous structure, and the high quality design emulates the rural character of the area. And is the variance minor in nature? There are no negative impacts on surrounding properties as a result of the variances. So in summary, the variances seek to increase lot coverage and height for an existing structure that was constructed on a former building footprint. The building features an attractive design that exhibits the property's rural setting. The variances satisfy the 4 Planning Act tests, and there's no impacts on surrounding properties. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do either Sandra or Brenda, have you any questions to ask?
Oh, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I will just we will just conclude the public portion of the meeting.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We do not have any pre-registered members of the public. However, I will just confirm with our clerks@pelham.ca email address that we have received no emails. And I can do that. So it is 4:20, and I confirm that we have received no emails, and therefore you can close the public portion and move into committee input.
We will close the public portion of the meeting, and we'll go into the committee input.
Thank you.
And I saw Sandra had her hand up. Please proceed, Sandra. Go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't have any questions. I just had a comment that the presentation was very good, very well laid out, and it answered any questions I had. I have no objections.
Fine. And Brenda?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I also do not have any questions. Could I have a proposer to make a pro or nay on the presentation? Go ahead, Sandra.
Through the chair, for file A19 2021P 1000 Effingham Street in Pelham, application is made for minor variance for the minimum accessory lot coverage of 1.5%, minimum building height of 5 meters be granted for the following reasons. The application is minor in nature, as the impact is minimal due to the rural context. The intent of the zoning bylaws maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposer is desirable for the land as it maintains the rural character of the property. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham, and the Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. The following conditions are with the application: that building permits are obtained, ensuring that no plumbing or living spaces are in the accessory building, and that prior to the building permits being obtained, to ensure that the accessory building meets the MDS formula if used for housing livestock.
Do I have a seconder?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor, raise their hands. See, where's Sandra?
Right here.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, thank you. Pass. Everything's fine then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Sarah, we can move on to the, after these people have a chance to vacate, we can move on to the next application, please.
Absolutely. I would just ask Ms. Wilford to please bring in our applicant, Mr. Alan Haywood. Perfect. So our next application on the agenda is B23 Hurricane Road, Part 1. The subject parcel, shown as Part 1 on the below sketch, has a frontage of 4.75 meters on the north side of Hurricane Road, lying east of Pelham Street, known locally as 3 Hurricane Road. The application is made for consent to partial discharge of mortgage and consent to convey 1,606 square meters of land, being Part 1, for future construction of a single detached dwelling. 2,428 square meters of land, Part 2, is to be retained for continued residential use of the dwelling known municipally as 3 Hurricane Road. To date, the following comments have been received. Bell Canada, no comments or concerns. The building department, permits will be required for the proposed dwelling and lean-to structure. Public Works, see conditions. One public comment was received from a neighboring property owner, which is included on the Committee of Adjustments agenda and summarized as follows. Concern that the development of 3 Hurricane can result in flooding or adjoining properties. Disputes that reduction in grass coverage and elimination of trees which can reduce water absorption combined with runoff from roofs and driveways from the proposed development can exacerbate the existing drainage deficiencies. suggests that ground/stormwater from 3 Hurricane Road be directed towards Hurricane Road, where the installation of upgraded storm sewers can address the flooding issues. Planning staff is of the opinion that the proposal applies current planning and development goals dealing with appropriate infill development, specifically making more efficient use of the town's finite urban land supply and municipal infrastructure where suitable to do so. The proposed lot creation complies with the zoning bylaw regulations approved by Council on March 1st, 2021, and should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regards to traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. Given the number of mature trees that are located on the property, staff also recommend a tree savings plan be prepared. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the PPS and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans. Planning staff recommend that application B20/2021P be approved, subject to the following conditions. That the applicant obtain an approval for a driveway entrance and culvert permit, as applicable, issued through the Public Works Department. Confirm that no existing utilities cross the proposed new property lines. Should any services cross these new property lines, the applicant will be responsible for the costs associated with their relocation and/or removal. That the applicant submitted a comprehensive overall lot grading and drainage plan for all parcels to demonstrate that the drainage does not negatively impact or rely on neighboring properties to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department. That the applicant obtain a driveway, I think this one is repeated. That the applicant undertake a tree savings plan identifying trees to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Planning and Development. That the applicant sign the Town of Pelham's Standard Memorandum of Understanding explaining the development charges and cash in lieu of dedication of land for park purposes are required prior to the issuance of the building permit. Provide the Secretary Treasurer with a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. Provide the final certification fee of $399 payable to the Treasurer, Town of Pelham, be submitted. All costs associated with fulfilling conditions of consent shall be borne by the applicant. And that consent files B16/2021P, B17/2021P, and B18/2021P receive final certification from the Secretary Treasurer concurrently. If you wish to receive a copy of the Notice of Decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible, which is Holly Wilford, Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, 20 Pelham Town Square, P.O. Box 400, Fonthill, Ontario, LOS 1EO, hwilford@pelham.ca. The contact information above can be found on the Town of Pelham's website.
We can bring the applicant rep in.
Yes,
time.
I do see that we have our applicant, Mr. Haywood, in the meeting with us.
Is it Mr. Haywood? Yeah, okay, thank you. So if Mr. Haywood, if you have a presentation or anything you want to add, feel free to speak right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to, through you, thank Holly and Sarah with regard to putting up some pictures for me for this presentation, since I'm PowerPoint illiterate, and they were helpful in that regard. And I just wanted to thank them for that. With regard to the planning report and the planning rationale, we're in agreement with it. We previously rezoned this property site-specific R1, went through council to get their approval for that, and the application before you conforms to it in every way. I do have a couple of questions with regards to conditions. With regard to the conditions, if we jump to the last condition regarding B16, 17, 18, I would like to just simply make the wording somewhat clearer. Since we're dealing with application B20, it seems to me that it would suggest that B20 being completed concurrently with those three previous ones. So I think if we simply, after the word concurrently in that condition, add the words prior to final certification of B20/2021P, I think that would add clarification that the other three applications will be completed prior to this one being completed.
I think you make a good point. I had I'll be honest with you, I had the same feeling. I mean, you first have to finalize what we did back in April. And once that's finished, then we can start the new one. But I guess, Sarah, would we ask Shannon if that would be a logical way of handling it?
I do see the town clerk, Holly Wilford's here to comment.
Or there's Holly. Okay, Holly, would you please answer that question for us, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is a condition that we do have regularly. The condition is that consent files B16, 17, and 18 receive final certification from the Secretary Treasurer concurrently. What we're intending here is that those three applications receive their certification and that their certificate of consent is issued and that's finalized prior to this application receiving its certification. So this is the standard language, and that is the intent that those three previous applications will be finalized prior to application B20/2021P receiving its certification.
Well, okay, Mr. Haywood, I think what I hear is that the language used and the way it is written is actually exactly what you want, but it's written in a different way. And if from that aspect, if that's the way it's written, I would leave it up to you, Holly. I guess we leave it the way it is, then, correct?
I'm okay with that as long as that's the understanding. It's just the language doesn't specifically say that. That's okay. I'm okay with it if that's the understanding.
That is the understanding. I can give you that assurance here that it's that these three applications that have previously come before the committee must receive their certification prior to this application receiving its certification. It's just intended that 16, 17, and 18, that those three receive final certification concurrently, not that it needs to be done at the same time as B20. I hope that clarification is helpful.
Yep, that's great. Thank you so much.
Okay,
again, through you, Mr. Chair, with regard to bullet 5 and the tree saving plan.
Yes.
Okay, I would respectfully request that this be removed as a condition. In support of this, I've submitted a tree and landscape review of the property by a landscape architect. I hope you've had the opportunity to review that.
Mr. Haywood, I have read it. I mean, he's saying that you can save some number of trees now. What he's really saying, it's from a landscape point of view, it's been let go. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a proposal to save some nice trees and go through that line so the surrounding area isn't destroyed to put a new house in. I think that's a reasonable request. All he's stating is the condition of the place today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. He has stated, though, in that it's at one time a finally landscaped piece of property, but it has been let go over several years. But he also noted that there are no trees of endangered species or anything like that. So also the size of the lot is 2.3 times larger than the minimum lot required in an R1 zone, which is the largest single family zoning. The severance line has been strategically placed to allow the preservation of a large pine tree at the end of the driveway, as well as a large red oak that's near the rear of application B18. So, and finally, in support of this, it was not a condition in either B16, B17, or B18, which were smaller lots. So this seems rather inconsistent.
I think I can't see any real problem with asking that. I mean, you're going to talk with the town, you go through it. It could be that you aren't going to save any trees. Right now, we don't know what is going to be saved or what is going to be done. I guess what they're saying is we want to have an exercise where we can look at things before there's a lot of work done on a plan, just to make sure that you just don't strip it right down to nothing. This is a safe way of making sure there's some reasonable time taken to make sure that what can be saved is saved. I think the time to address this is not to take it out here, is at the time when you want to build or whatever, you get the director of planning and go through the tree saving plan. I think that's quite a reasonable request. You'll find out what can be or can't be, and then you can discuss it with them and show them what you want to do.
So as to what is the extent satisfaction of the director of planning?
Yeah, well, they say here to the satisfaction of the director of planning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your comment.
You take it up with it, yeah, okay.
I just don't see it as consistent with the previous applications, and the lot is significantly larger than any other lots in the area.
We look at every application independent of anything else we do. I will state that. So what we did 3 months ago doesn't mean we have to do the same thing today. We look at you just said the property is bigger, the property isn't the same as the others, so obviously we could take a different approach. Okay, please proceed then.
Okay, with regard from the comments from the Valentino Moffat household at 4 Short Hill, I will be brief as possible, as the same items were addressed at the zoning stage, but I feel I need to enter this information for the record should there be any appeal to your decision today. Their concerns, as noted in 2 separate pieces of correspondence, can be summarized as: 1, drainage concerns of 3 hurricane draining onto their property, and 2, headlights shining on their property. With regard to the drainage, as noted in the conditions, the drainage plan is required. I provided both the drainage catchment area and the grading plan for the Short Hill development. The path of the water actually comes from lot 10 fronting Lorimer and follows a path shown in blue. And Sarah, could you pull up the one? It's the email I sent to you about the physiography. It's the last picture on that email.
Yes, I will ask Ms. Wilford to please share her screen.
And it's the last picture in that email.
Sorry, could you confirm if it's one of the 2 JPEGs?
It was below that.
I don't have them in the email. I have them in a separate document. So.
Oh, okay. It's the one that shows the air photography with the blue path of the water. It came in that same email.
Okay, I will just ask Ms. Wilford to identify that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have shared my screen. I'm just trying to share it again. I had understood that you could see. Can you see the picture?
I can see the physiography. Sorry, Mr. Haywood, that's not the correct one?
No, it was in that email, the physiography, but it was the last picture in that one that shows the air photo and the...
Can you see my screen now? I have a photo of the landscaping.
Yeah, it was actually an air photo from above. It was from Niagara Navigator.
I apologize. I don't recall that attachment.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't recall that attachment either, Mr. Haywood.
It wasn't an attachment. It was on the email I sent you about the physiography, and it was underneath that picture.
Oh, I do see. Ms. Wilford, I will forward this to you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. My apologies. If you just give us one moment.
Next one down. That's it. That's it. So in the pictures previously provided by the Valentino Moffat household, they showed water traveling across their property, and I've made an attempt to map that with the dashed blue lines. The predominant path that she was talking about comes from actually number 38 Lorimer and passes through their property. And of course, the area circled by around the pool in blue is the lowest area of their property. If I could get you to bring up the grading plan for Short Hill Place now, Holly, please. And if you could zoom in a little bit on lot 19, which is at the westerly side. Yeah, that's it. So lot 19 is number 4 Short Hill. The arrows on that plan indicate the way the drainage is supposed to go on the back of their property. You can see from the arrows that water is supposed to pass both on the west and on the east side of the property. From the air photo, if you recall, there's a pool that was circled there, and there's a shed on that side. So all of the drainage must go to the west side of that property. And of course, it migrates to the lowest part being the pool. So most of their drainage problems are of their own validity. And I think it's up to them to correct their own problems. Having said that, a drainage plan that we will prepare will not add to the problem, as we intend to reduce flow to be less than or equal to post flow.
Mr. Haywood, I must add that as part of one of the conditions, you have to give a lot grading plan and dealing with the stormwater.
I acknowledge that, Mr. Chairman.
Now, at that point, we can't solve it here, but at that point, you're going to have to satisfy the town that what you offer will work and have to have an agreement. And I think from our point of view, that's how we protect yourself and the neighborhood from any problems with flooding.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm just acknowledging that they already have a flooding problem before we even do anything.
Well, fine. I'm just saying from a point, you're going to have to address that when you do your site plan work from that aspect. So in what I'm saying to you, really, you're going to look after this problem. And I think the people that are complaining will have to understand that you will be looking at this and that the town will be looking at it, and that they will make sure there aren't any problems. Like this is part of the condition to make sure everything's done the proper way. And I think from that aspect, we've heard what they said, but the bottom line is what your engineer comes up with and what the town, if it agrees with everything that's being done. And so I think we don't have to bother with that or discuss it any further. I think that we can put it to bed right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The point of the drainage plan is obviously to control drainage within our property. I just wanted to point out that they do have a drainage problem that is beyond what 3 Hurricane is providing to them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But what I'm saying is when you do your drainage plan, I think you can put a little asterisk and put it and explain to the town, here's the problem. And I'm sure the town will work with you to make sure all the players in the subdivision are satisfied. And those that haven't done the work prior, I don't know if the person you're talking about has made some improvements or some work on their lot that has caused a negative impact. I guess the town can look at that time, but here we're not going to address that here.
No, my only point to this, Mr. Chairman, was to state that they have a problem that exceeds what 3 Hurricane is providing to them, and we will not contribute to their problem.
Okay, just make sure your engineer can prove that, verify it. Next thing, the lighting.
My last point, Mr. Chairman, with
Yes.
regard to the complaint from the neighbor, with regard to headlights, I simply wanted to offer a couple of pictures. Holly, if you could bring up the pictures that show the driveway on the property. You had them earlier, I saw them. That was the landscaping.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of the looking north on the driveway. The Valentino Moffett home is behind that pine tree and the white shed that's there, and that's the view as we come in the driveway, which is not changing in location and not changing in size. It's going to be in the same location. I think it's quite evident that it seems illogical that headlights are causing any problem here. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fine. And also, Mr. Haywood, when you're going through looking at trees and what vegetation, what you want to keep, I'm sure that you can satisfy their needs without much ado, and say that the light will be filtered. It shouldn't be a problem. I think we'll leave it at that then. Is there anything else you have to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I'll wait the committee's decision. Okay.
Before we go into the committee asking questions, I guess Sarah has, before I close the public portion of the meeting, have we had any emails come in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have a pre-registered member of the public, but I have been notified they are no longer able to speak. I will just confirm with our email. It is 4:46, and I can confirm that we have received no emails and that you can close the public portion of the meeting and move forward with committee input.
I just want to state for the record that we did, the person that couldn't come with the letter, Mr. Haywood addressed those questions, so that was done. So now we can start with the committee questioning. Do I have any questions from Sandra or Brenda? Have you any questions for Mr. Haywood?
I have none.
Okay.
I have no questions.
I have no questions either. Can I have a decision? Could someone come up with a decision and a recommendation? Brenda, please proceed.
This is dealing with file B20 2021 3 Hurricane Road in Pelham. Consent to convey Part 1 and a partial discharge of mortgage for Part 1 is hereby granted, subject to the following conditions. To the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works, obtain a driveway entrance and culvert permit, confirm that no utilities cross property lines, and submit a lot grading and drainage plan. To the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, undertake a tree savings plan and sign the town standard memorandum of understanding. To the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer, provide the Secretary Treasurer with a registerable legal description and a copy of the deposited reference plan, a final certification fee of $399. And number 3, consent applications B16, B17, B18, 2021 receive concurrent certification. This decision is based on the following reasons. The application conforms to and complies with the town's official plan, regional policy plan, and provincial policy statement, and the town zoning bylaw. This decision is rendered having regard to sections 51, 24, 51, 25 of the Planning Act. The committee considered all written and oral submissions and finds that subject to the conditions, this application meets Planning Act criteria, is consistent, and complies with provincial, regional, and town planning policy.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a seconder?
I will second that.
Sandra, thank you, Sandra. Sandra Marsh is seconded. All in favor, please vote. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we are finished this part of the meeting.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is minutes for approval. Up first, we have April 7th, 2021, and in attendance, we had Sandra Marsh and Brenda Stan. And then the second set of minutes is May 4th, 2021, where all were attendance.
Okay. Now, Sandra and Brenda, if you've looked through, are there any problems with the minutes? Sandra, please.
Through the chair, I didn't see any corrections or alterations that needed to be made.
Okay. And Brenda?
Everything looks good.
Okay. So I guess, Sarah, do we vote on it, or we just say that it was approved, or you want to vote on this?
If you could vote, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I have to abstain because I wasn't there. So all those in favor that the minutes are correct, and we have Sandra and Brenda have said yes, so we have a majority approval. Okay.
Thank you.
The next one is.
The next item on the agenda is the adjournment.
The adjournment.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, those were the only minutes we had to approve, correct?
Correct.
So now we want to adjourn, so I have to have a motion to adjourn and then a seconder. Do I have someone that will make a motion to adjourn for today? Sandra has made the motion. I second her.
I second that.
Brenda has seconded, and we will vote all in favor, and we passed.
Thank you very much.
Now the approval to adjourn. And I guess that's it for today.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you very much.
Sarah, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I know you're using the internet more, so. I like that. I'm being complimentary, not negative.
Oh, good. Good.
It's much, you have more time to do things, so that's fine. I just wanted to compliment you, that's all. Okay, everybody have a good July then.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.